Hey, I'm Kaylee McDade, 20th place at the Canada West Regionals, and this is WODtv.
Hello and welcome again to WODtv. This week we're going to discuss some tips for the regionals workouts.
Based on my and your reflections on this past weekend at the Canada West Regional, we've got some advice for you guys to get an edge up on these workouts. We'll hopefully give you 1 or 2 tips per workout that'll allow you to see an improved performance, whether you're competing in the regionals yourself or if you're just throwing down at your affiliate.
Agreed. So let's get to it.
All right. Workout 1, the hang squat snatch. I'll start by saying the night before or well ahead of time, you want to plan out your plate loading for the barbell. So what I mean by that is you get a limited pile of plates. I think on each side of the barbell, so just look at one side of the barbell, you get 2 45s, 1 35, 1 25, 1 10, 1 5, 1 2.5. And that sounds like a lot, but I got in a situation where I had 225 on the bar, I'd done some higher weights, and I wanted to load it to 265 potentially. But that actually wasn't doable with the plates. I would have had to take off a 45, put some smaller ones on, and put another big one on. So the night ahead of time, or the night ahead of your lift, know exactly what plates you have available, how you're going to load them to save yourself time and trouble, and make sure you get the weights you want.
That's a good tip for sure, and we saw a lot of people have trouble with that in the workout. They have to make some jumps that they weren't prepared for. My advice would just be to be conservative with your lifts. You've got a scenario where you're going to have time to warm up behind the scenes and kind of the warm-up area, but then you're going to be taken into the corral area, which is usually going to be about a 10 or 12 minute wait before you get out on the floor. So being a bit more conservative in your opening weight allows you to get a good lift in right off the bat and not have to be frantic if you miss that first lift. There's going to be a little bit of delay in there. So if you have the time, if you're in one of the later regionals, then look at practicing this, actually warming up, and then taking a 10-minute rest before trying your predicted opening weight that you're going to use in the competition. That'll kind of help you really solidify what you're going to open with.
It's a very good idea. Event 2, the handstand walk. Technically, everyone's got their own sort of baseline skill for the handstand walk, but in terms of any technical cues that might help you guys, I would say try the hands just a little bit wider, try the fingertips turned out just a little bit. What this is going to make sure is that you're not sort of crossing over and twisting your body too much and throwing off your balance. You want to sort of feel like you're shuffling in a pretty sort of square, solid position. The other thing is make sure that you're not craning your head and your eyeballs up to look. That's going to throw your body into a big open arch position, make it a lot harder to stay balanced and not to fall over. The benefit is that on your handstand lane, you've got these nice white hash marks, so you can almost look backwards behind you and still make sure you're going in a straight line. So don't crank your eyes up too much and try and move your hands and your fingers out a little bit.
Those are great tips and definitely help Lucas, secure a really good handstand walk in his regional. The one thing I saw a couple of competitors do, which I think is a really good idea, is actually to practice really quickly after the snatches. Just kick up into a handstand walk and try to walk a few feet. I don't know if that's legal or not, but I saw a bunch of people do it in our regional, and it kind of gets you back into that movement and can help get away from those jitters of standing there at the line, hearing 3, 2, 1, go, and not having done a handstand walk since 20 minutes ago in the warm-up pit. So I think that would be a good idea just to kind of get familiar with that movement after lifting those heavy weights in the snatch.
Exactly, and we do have those mulligan opportunities where you can have 1 or 2 failed attempts. So you might as well get that out of the way before the event actually starts to make sure that you're not putting too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so WOD number 3, Nasty Girls version 2.0. Really interesting workout and really fun to watch. The one thing that I really picked up on between the competitors who did really well in this or gave themselves more time and those who didn't give themselves more time was the pace on the pistols. And I don't necessarily mean how fast you go up and down on one leg, but how fast you transition from side to side with your legs. So making sure that, if you don't want to take a second in between your legs, you want to take a half second, and you think about a half second, multiply by all those reps, you can save yourself a lot of time And if you're proficient at pistols and you're at regionals level, you're going to be fit enough to do those fast and not dig yourself a hole in terms of fatigue.
Agreed, especially because the pistol itself doesn't interfere too much with the next movement, the muscle up. However, there is a bit of interference and interplay between the muscle up and the hang clean. And what I would say, my one tip through the workout would be to do true touch and go reps on the hang clean. So what I mean by that is make sure that as you come down from one rep, you're not pausing and resting for a second and then going again. If you can, you want to go down from one rep right into the hang, into the clean for the next rep. There's literally 2 or 3 times as fast, and you're going to be spending that smaller amount of time hanging that bar in your grip. So hopefully that's going to have less of an impact on your muscle ups in the subsequent rounds.
Yeah, definitely, and it might jack up your heart rate a little bit, but you know, you can definitely pace that out on. You'll normalize again on those pistols after
Exactly.
that.
So a nice flow to that workout.
And then workout number 4 was the 21-15-9-6-3 of strict handstand push-ups, front squats, and burpees.
Yeah, this one on paper looks pretty nasty. In practice, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, and I think that's because of how, personally, how I paced it for myself. I made sure that I broke up the front squats early on and tried to make sure that I was conserving my energy and postural sort of stability and integrity for the money-making movement, which was the handstand push-up. So what I mean by this is that, sure, I could maybe do 21 front squats unbroken, but that would take a huge toll on my upper back muscles and my core stability, so that when I get back to those handstand push-ups, I'd have a much harder time of stabilizing and pressing my torso up and down. And on the burpees, the same sort of idea. I saw a lot of people doing this sort of dive down to the floor thing where they would hop down on their elbows to try and sort of save their triceps. I wouldn't recommend that. I would stay away from anything new or fancy that's going to be sort of a novel movement that's going to require more energy because your body's not used to it. Additionally, diving down on your elbow is still loading the shoulder, and it's loading it directly now. So you're really going to be fatiguing and burning out that sort of scapula area, which is really what limits you in that starting strength on the handstand push-up.
Yeah, for sure. And just like any CrossFit workout, it's the combination of the movements you have to manage in order to get the best score, right? And so one thing we saw with the actual handstand push-up itself, it's performed on a pretty high density foam mat. So, you know, most of the year, actually the vast majority of the year, all of your training should be with a safe eye on technique, and safety is being foremost for your body. What we found though in this scenario with that volume of handstand push-ups, the mat affords you the opportunity to have a little bit of a bounce out of the bottom of the handstand push-up. And we're not talking about dropping from the top, just utilizing a little bit of that elasticity of the foam to actually help yourself get through the sticking point on each rep.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if this is the peak of your season, the culmination of your entire year, and if you're an athlete who's willing to maybe trade a bit of risk for some potential reward, you could think about doing a bit of a bounce on those handstand push-ups. The caveat with this is that you need to be braced in a super strong, reinforced neutral position. If you imagine trying to balance a car on your head, or if you're an African lady carrying a big jug of water, she's not doing it with her forehead, with her back in an arched position. She's nice and tall and upright, chin is tucked, and the load is distributed perfectly up and down through the spine. That's the only way you're going to be able to do that safely.
Yeah, agreed. And definitely practice this, and you know, there's probably a liability waiver we should sign if we say stuff like this, but you know, in that scenario, if it's kind of, you know, you making a good score on that workout or not, then it's something you can practice, and if you feel comfortable with it, then you can utilize it.
All right, event 5, legless rope climbs and shuttle sprint, or rather recovery run, depending on your pacing. We'll talk about that in a sec. What I want to focus on is how you're grabbing and pulling on the rope. So there are sort of stronger and weaker ways to do it, in my opinion. So let's go over to the rope and I'll sort of show you what I mean.
Let's take a peek.
Okay, so just for general gripping and grabbing purposes, this is pretty much the strongest position you can sort of put your arms in. If you're too bunched up, you're going to be a bit weaker, and if you're too extended, you're going to be a bit weaker. In addition, hand and wrist position, generally it pays to sort of cock your wrist in just a little bit. Now, the issue with this on the rope is that if I'm grabbing the rope and I cock both my wrists in, You see how that kind of winds up the rope? Now this is added tension, and the rope wants to unwind, so I'm fighting that. So what I'm going to recommend is really pre-cocking your wrists so that when you do grab the rope and go to a bit more of a normal position, you're kind of unwinding the fibers. What that does is it brings the rope to sort of a good dead end position where you can really sort of hang off the rope without additional tension in the rope, in the fibers. The other thing I want to say is that I'm not a fan of the big giant sort of kip and reach and swing thing. The reason being is look at my wrist position. When I'm at a straight arm position, my fingers are angled, my wrist is angled, and this is a weaker position. This is a weaker position than this. So what I'm going to recommend is taking a bit more of an abbreviated grip, leaning back slightly, and trying to get yourself in a bit more of sort of a straight arm kind of boxer muscle man position here. Over the span of 10 reps, you're going to be taking slightly shorter strokes, but you're going to be fatiguing your grip and your arms a lot less.
All right, and I'm going to discuss why you may want to consider doing a kip variation of the rope climb, especially if you're in a women's competition. There will be the odd woman, actually there may be many more women now if you practice your rope climbs, they'll be able to utilize what Lucas is talking about. What we saw in the Canada West region was that the rope climb was the major limitation for women, and it was really arm strength that was dictating their pace. So, in rock climbing, we always suggest that you have a straight arm position, and granted your finger position or your grip position is going to be slightly weaker, but this is a much more sustainable position for your arm versus being that bent arm position. So if you have a nice kind of controlled kip and rhythmical kip, I think and especially if you're in the women's competition, that'll actually pay off for you and be more sustainable through the workout, which is what we saw was really the difference in the women's placing overall last weekend. I would talk about one more thing on that workout, and that's that, in our predictions video, I suggested that the best times would be between 3 and 4 minutes for the men, and I believe the best time so far is about 3 minutes 20, 3 minutes 30. So even without even doing the workout and just thinking about it in my head, I was pretty much right. So that's all I have to say.
Props.
Yeah.
Workout number 6, the 50s. For me, one of the most painful workouts of the weekend. Let's talk about why. When I got into the middle of that workout, that turnaround point with the 50 wall balls, 50 ring dips, 50 wall balls, combination of things made that point pretty difficult. By the time you get there, you've accumulated a good 5 to 7 minutes of pretty fatiguing movements. Now you're trying to be accurate with the wall ball, and you're trying to hit the new standard for range of motion on the ring dips. So both very challenging. Personally, I ended up getting quite a few no reps on the wall ball. So this is something that you're going to want to practice, making sure you're hitting your depth and making sure you're hitting the target. Depending what type of gym you train at, if you just have a line painted on your wall, you're going to be used to that spacing with the wall in front of your face. However, at regionals, you have totally open space in front of you, and there's now like a see-through plastic target. So it can be very disconcerting if you're not used to that. So one thing we talked about was when you first get up to that wall ball station, stand directly underneath it, and so the target is right above your head, and then take one big step back, and that's your position for hitting your wall ball target. That's going to be most similar to how you're spaced with a wall. For the ring dips, one of those things where it comes down to pretty much just local muscular stamina in the triceps. The only thing I'd recommend there is making sure you're not going to failure, because you want to get through 50 reps in a reasonable amount of time, and you also have another 50 wall balls to go through that's going to require some significant arm and shoulder. So that interplay there is probably the hardest part of that workout. What are your thoughts on the 50s?
I agree with what you said. I think when you get to the ring dips, I mean, what we thought was going to happen is there's going to be a big separation on the ring dips. But what I actually saw was people who were ahead going into the ring dips typically were the first people coming out of it, regardless of ring dip ability. So the front end of the workout, you want to get done fairly quickly. You don't want to be behind too much going in. And one of the things that's going to help you is utilizing a rebound style of box jump. So I saw some competitors who probably rode a little bit too hard on 50 calories. They got on the box jumps and they weren't doing rebound box jumps. They were doing some sort of funky transitions over the box and things like that. Rebound box jumps save your muscles. They save your energy. You utilize basically a stretch shortening cycle of your muscles. You use elastic energy in a rebound box jump. It's much less fatiguing. And unlike a lot of the other movements, you could go potentially 2 times as fast on a rebound box jump with a good transition as you could with a non-rebound box jump, and that's going to also be more fatiguing. So that's my main tip for that first part of the workout.
Yeah, especially because no one's going to be going twice as fast as you on the row, but someone could very easily be going 2 or 3 times as fast as you on the box jumps if you're not using an efficient technique. So.
Exactly.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about the final workout. Workout number 7, pull-ups and overhead squats. You mentioned in our pre-video to the regionals this is going to be an exciting one, and it certainly was. I was very pleased with how the combination played out across the heats. My tips for getting through this one: number 1, the sort of equipment prep and hand care. You want to know what's best for you to get the best purchase on the pull-up bar. So if that means using gymnastics grips, if that means chalking up a certain way, if that means taping a certain way, in my opinion, gymnastics grips protect your skin, but they make it much more challenging to stay on the bar for a long time and to cycle the reps. This is the last workout of the weekend, so if you're in it for the points, it doesn't really matter if you rip your hands. So I would maybe recommend going without the gymnastics grips to get that nice sort of tight, sticky skin on the bar, because anything that's going to help you stay on that pull-up bar for 5, 10 extra reps or even extra seconds is going to set you ahead in that workout. The second thing to think about is your technique for getting that bar overhead. The fastest way to do it is going to be to squat snatch it. However, I squat snatched my first rep and I missed it behind. So you got to know yourself as an athlete. If you can squat snatch it, that's great, but can you squat snatch 205 after doing 64 pull-ups? The lats, the arms, the grip is all going to be fatigued. So the more conservative version would be some sort of a power clean, pop over the head, slide the hands out, and then I think you're actually allowed to do a snatch balance. So that would be a quick way to do it, or just stick it up overhead. But yeah, know yourself as an athlete and practice it. What do you think about that?
I agree as well. I mean, the Sunday's all about toughness, right? It's just about surviving. I mean, you've got the 50s in the morning, you've got that tough sprint in the evening. So, you know, people using the gymnastics grips, like, get over it. Your hands might tear. It's about toughness. It's your last workout. Just go for it. I also agree with knowing yourself, especially on that snatch technique. It's the safest is the power clean to pop over the head to slide the hands out. Second safest is probably a power snatch. And then obviously the most risky is the squat snatch. If you're behind, if you need to make a spot up, you can take that risk if you've practiced it. And I do want to impress upon you that doing pull-ups and doing overhead squats is not the same as doing pull-ups together with overhead squats, which some people in our region didn't have the time to do or didn't have the preparation to do. So definitely practice this workout. It's really surprising in how it fatigues the muscles. We were talking earlier, and Lucas was saying, that the lats are getting fatigued and they're stabilizing the shoulder. All your scapular muscles are getting fatigued, they're stabilizing the shoulder. So you're coming into a 205 overhead squat with a lot of fatigue, and you need to know how that feels before you get into that event.
All right, guys, so good luck in all of these workouts. To those of you competing in the subsequent weekends and regionals, lay it all out there. This, for most of us, is the end of the season, so we want to end on a high note and really learn some lessons to reflect upon. And if you're trying these workouts in your gym with your buddies, stay safe, stay smart, try and use some of these strategy tips. Let us know how it goes.
Keep fit and have fun.